Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take that stack of sources you send over, the articles, research, all that, and really boil it down.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
Exactly. Consider this your shortcut. You'll be instantly informed on a shift that's, well, it's changing how basically everyone communicates now.
Right. We're not just, reading out data points. We're trying to map this whole new landscape, a landscape that's actively being, engineered by the platforms we're all using every single day.
And we're kicking off with a word that perfectly captures this whole thing. A word that honestly might sound totally ridiculous if you didn't grow up with it, but it's standard now. You hear it everywhere, schools, news, even therapy sessions. The word is unalive.
That's the perfect place to start, yeah. Because when you hear unalive, whether it's about like a video game character or a really serious event, you're basically witnessing this fundamental shift in real time. It's not just slang, it's like a signpost showing how algorithms are shaping our actual words.
So today, we are diving deep into ALGOSPEAK. That's the umbrella term, right? For all these communication tricks and the words that come out of them, all shaped by social media rules and content moderation.
It goes way beyond just, internet jargon. So our mission today is pretty big. We want to unpack this huge iceberg that's mostly hidden under the surface of social media. We'll look at the trends, the really creative ways people get around things, the euphemisms that pop up, and these kind of strange new identities emerging from this whole algorithmic thing.
Right. And crucially, we don't just want to know what we're saying online. We want to understand why the algorithm, the sort of invisible hand, seems to want us to say it that way and what that actually means for you, trying to navigate all this. Okay, so let's really unpack Unalive. Because its origin story isn't just about language changing naturally. It's tied up in, like, global politics and tech censorship, right?
Exactly. It's a classic case of constraints breeding creativity. I mean, the term didn't just bubble up randomly from American teens. Its roots are directly in China's really strict state-level censorship. Specifically, ByteDance, TikTok's parent company.
Okay, so we're talking around 2019, when ByteDance put in those heavy-duty keyword filters on Douyin, their Chinese platform.
That's the one. Massive lists of sensitive words, high-risk stuff designed to block anything critical of the government. Hong Kong protests, Xinjiang, anything politically sensitive.
And these weren't simple word finders, were they?
No, not at all. They were sophisticated, designed to catch spoken words, text on screen, even analyze images. So when that same censorship engine got bolted onto the international version, TikTok, users pretty quickly figured out they needed a whole new vocabulary.
To talk about sensitive stuff without setting off the alarms.
Right, without getting their posts flagged, accounts penalized, or even worse, shadow banned. Unalive was basically engineered as a workaround for this really powerful algorithmic censorship.
It's fascinating, though, how a word born out of necessity, like dodging government filters, then becomes so useful culturally. It jumped from being a niche creator tool to a genuinely common euphemism.
And that's why it stuck. That transition is key. It served two purposes. For creators, it was protection. For users, especially younger ones, it offered this kind of psychological distance.
Yeah.
Our minds naturally look for ways to soften harsh realities, right? Especially death, suicide. There was that AP article in 2023. It pointed out that Unalive actually helps counselors and students talk about really tough subjects because it feels softer, less clinical, maybe less scary.
The bit that really struck me was that some students are reportedly learning Unalive before they even learn the word suicide.
Wow.
That shows you algorithms aren't just filtering content. They're directly influencing our core vocabulary from the ground up.
And it taps into this constant human need for, linguistic comfort. We're always trying to find ways to talk around difficult things, especially mortality. Think about the history of words for death.
Right. You mentioned that example how our modern word to die actually started as an Old Norse euphemism. It replaced the Old English word sweltan.
Which itself was probably a euphemism for something even older and harsher.
Yeah.
It's a constant pattern. Romans passed away, they didn't die. Victorians had wasting sicknesses, not cancer. Unalive is just the newest version of this ancient tradition. The big difference is that it was created and spread super fast because of code, because of technical rules, not over centuries of slow social change. That speed is the key difference.
So if unalive is the big example, let's talk about how common this whole practice is. This linguistic whack-a-mole you mentioned. It's not just a few people doing this, is it?
Oh, far from it. This is mass behavior. It's linguistic innovation basically born out of self-defense online. That 2022 TELUS International survey found that roughly 30% of Americans, almost a third, deliberately use coded language online, specifically to get around content moderation and keyword filters.
So it's not some niche subculture. It's just a basic internet survival skill now.
Pretty much. It's a fundamental communication technique online.
And it has historical roots, too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not entirely new.
You can trace the lineage, absolutely. We see digital bowdlerization and, respelling swear words named after Thomas Bowdler, who famously cleaned up Shakespeare.
Right.
Online, you see fic become SVK or FVK. Bitch becomes BDFair or BBage. And that goes back even further to leet speak on old 80s bulletin boards, using numbers and symbols like 5U1, C1D3 for suicide.
Okay, a quick technical point on those respellings. Why do they usually mess with the vowels, taking them out or swapping them, rather than the consonants?
It's a balancing act. You need to dodge the filter, but humans still need to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Vowels are structurally crucial, but taking them out or changing them often leaves enough of the consonant skeleton for a person to guess the word quickly. It's much easier to figure out fic than, say, FK. The algorithm might get confused by the changed letters, but our brains fill in the gaps pretty well.
Makes sense. Okay, so beyond just swapping letters, there's this whole other layer involving diminutives and minced oaths, making things sound cuter or sillier.
Yes, and this taps right into our instinct to make taboo topics seem less threatening, or sometimes just funny. Think segs for sex, or nipnops for nipples, peen for penis. These diminutives kind of shrink the word's intensity.
Like putting a smiley sticker over something disturbing.
Exactly. The concept is still there, but the edge is taken off. The discomfort is lessened.
And it's interesting, this isn't just about dodging filters. Minced oaths, like saying heck instead of hell, they've always existed to avoid social or religious offense.
Precisely. But now the main offense is often aimed at the machine, at the algorithm. Take segs. Replacing the X sound with a G sound is often designed to fool phonetic detection in video transcripts. The meaning is totally clear to humans, but the sound profile changes just enough. And you see minced oaths used politically too, like "Let's go Brandon." It became this widely understood substitute, showing how making something PG-rated or silly can be a really powerful way to spread serious, high-impact ideas without triggering immediate alarms.
Okay, the ultimate tactic in this evasion game seems to be Voldemorting, where not saying the word is the point.
Absolutely. Researcher Emily Vandernagel coined that. Voldemorting is deliberately avoiding specific keywords. Just like in Harry Potter, where they avoid saying Voldemort's name, users avoid words to stop content being indexed, showing up in searches, or, and this is really interesting, to signal that a word or name is taboo.
So it's not just hiding from the algorithm, it's also making a statement, like political performance art.
It's super effective social commentary. When someone online calls Donald Trump Cheeto or 45 or refers to Hitler as the top guy of the Germans, they're intentionally excluding the actual name. They're signaling this name is too toxic, too offensive to even say. It imposes a taboo, which actually puts the power back in the hands of the person critiquing.
And we saw this explode during recent geopolitical conflicts, didn't we? Like the Israel-Hamas war.
Yeah, the need became urgent almost overnight. Creators talking about the conflict had to get really creative with ALGOSPEAK, swapping Gaza for things like Aza with the little accent mark, or using emojis. The watermelon emoji became a huge signal for Palestinian solidarity without using flagged text.
Right.
Even phrases like "from the river to the sea" got so heavily monitored that just saying them could get your account restricted fast.
I remember you mentioned having that experience yourself, analyzing that phrase.
I did. I posted this detailed linguistic analysis of the historical uses of that phrase, framed it very academically, and within hours, boom, reach plummeted. The algorithm just suspected controversy and throttled it a classic shadow ban. It puts creators in this bind. You have to play by the algorithm's rules even while you're trying to talk about those rules.
What's really striking is that this whole collection of tactics, the respellings, the euphemisms, Voldemorting, it's basically formed a brand new sociolect, a way of speaking for a specific group.
You could definitely call it the ALGOSPEAK sociolect. It's this shared emerging language. Using it shows you get the technical rules and the social norms of the online space you're in. And even when terms like segs or unalive get so popular that the platforms eventually do start filtering them, they often survive anyway
Oh, so
because they take on a new job. signaling familiarity, signaling shared experience, in-group status. Using the code means you belong, you get it.
Okay, so this need to evade filters drives new words. But then there's the speed. You mentioned historical words like deceased took centuries to become common.
Right.
Unalive got there in, what, about a decade? That acceleration is kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like a linguistic phase shift. The algorithm is a massive accelerant. Nowadays, the spread of new words is basically the same thing as the spread of memes. They're inseparable.
How so?
Well, algorithms, especially on short video platforms like TikTok, are programmed to push the most compelling stuff. They prioritize novelty, strong emotional reactions. So if a word gets used successfully in a meme that captures attention, the algorithm grabs it and just blasts it out globally, instantly.
And the perfect case study for this algorithmic boost has to be all the slang that exploded with the Rizzler song.
Oh, yeah. Sticking out your guyet for the Rizzler. I mean, if you're not in middle school or teaching it, that sentence is probably just noise.
Yeah.
But its success wasn't really about the music. It was engineered linguistic density, pure metadata fuel.
What do you mean by metadata fuel? How was it engineered?
It was pure trend stacking. The creators crammed it full of words that were already trending separately online. Words like yacht, riz, skabd, sigma, phantom tax. The algorithm saw this concentration of hot keywords
And thought, wow, this must be super relevant.
Exactly. It deduced this song hits all the currently popular topics, so it pushed it like crazy. It was less a cultural moment, more like a statistical inevitability based on keywords.
So it's like hitting multiple targets at once. If the algorithm knows someone likes Riz videos and someone else likes the yacht videos, content with both gets recommended down multiple paths.
That's precisely double or triple the reach potential. And the linguistic fallout was immediate and massive. Remember, within just 3 months of that song hitting, that survey found 80% of middle school parents and teachers had heard Riz from kids.
80%. That's insane penetration speed.
Which is exactly why Riz ended up being the Oxford English Dictionary's Word of the Year for 2023. The algorithm basically acted like the world's fastest dictionary publisher, forcing standardization overnight.
Okay, so this whole viral engine runs on something fundamental, though. The fact that human attention is limited, it's scarce.
Absolutely fundamental. Goes back to Herbert Simon in 1971. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. On social media today, attention is the only currency that really counts. For short-form video, it all boils down to retention rate.
How long you can keep someone watching.
Right. If your video doesn't grab someone and hold them in the first, 2 seconds, the algorithm basically gives up on it, stops showing it widely. Instant punishment.
So creators have to become psychologists almost, using specific linguistic tricks, microhooks, to create really high content valence, like intense emotional reactions or resonance.
This is where you see the crazy use of superlatives. The most interesting X is, and really exaggerated, bold language. But a huge tactic is the constant, sometimes manipulative use of you, the second-person pronoun.
Talking directly to the viewer.
Yeah. We're wired to care about things that seem to be about us. By constantly saying you, creators kind of trick our brains into feeling personally involved. It builds this pseudo-intimate parasocial relationship, which makes you stick around longer, boosts retention.
It sounds quite relentless, this pressure for high valence. But then there's rage baiting. Why on earth would making people angry or annoyed be a good strategy?
Because the metric is engagement, not happiness. Rage baiting, deliberately using language that's inflammatory or just plain frustrating, is incredibly effective at hijacking attention.
Ow.
Think about it. If something makes you mad enough to stop scrolling, maybe leave an angry comment, argue in the replies, or even just watch the whole thing to see if they ever make sense.
The algorithm sees all that as positive engagement.
Exactly. Your negative reaction translates into positive data points. The algorithm thinks, wow, this content is super engaging, and pushes more rage bait to more people. It creates this vicious cycle fueled by frustration, but optimized for viral spread. It's dark, but it works for attention.
And this need for constant little hooks, these micro hooks, it's even inventing new grammatical quirks, isn't it? Like that phrase, no because.
Oh, no because is fascinating. It's a discourse marker. Think about no because you won't believe what happened next.
Yeah, you hear it constantly.
Grammatically, the no is totally unnecessary. But linguistically, it's vital online. It functions as this abrupt pattern interrupt. Yeah, it conditions you to pause your scroll because that phrase almost always comes right before a story or some kind of reveal. It primes you.
Snaps you out of the mindless scrolling.
It creates this feeling of jumping in medias res right into the middle of something exciting. It's informal, urgent. Your brain wants to figure out what the no is disagreeing with, and by the time you process it, the creator's already captured those crucial first few seconds of watch time.
And that started online, but now you hear it in real life all the time.
Totally. Shows how the algorithm isn't just changing words, it's reshaping even basic conversational habits.
So, okay, algorithmic evasion changes what we say. The viral engine, the need for attention, starts changing how we say it. That seems like the next logical piece.
That's a perfect transition because we're moving from vocabulary choices into actual phonology, the sounds we make. The so-called influencer accent is a really striking example of language adapting purely because of metrics. Creators are literally changing how they talk because they know it affects watch time.
And we know this isn't just speculation anymore, right? There's actual proof, like that leaked memo from Mr. Beast.
That memo was huge. It laid bare how analytical top creators are. They treat their voice like any other variable to optimize. MrBeast aims for around 200 words per minute. That's way faster than typical conversational English. It's a deliberate choice to cram more information in, keep things moving, improve retention.
Because dead air is deaf to the algorithm.
Exactly. Speed eliminates pauses.
But it's not just speed, is it? What else makes up this lifestyle influencer accent? What are the telltale signs?
You hear a cluster of things. Definitely the fast pace. Very emphatic prosody. Everything sounds super exciting or important. Vowel lengthening, dragging out sounds like "scood," and critically, uptalk.
Uptalk, where every sentence ends like it's a question.
Precisely. And that rising intonation serves a purpose. It functions as a floor-holding strategy.
How so?
It makes it sound like the speaker isn't finished, like they're seeking confirmation or about to drop the next big point. It subconsciously discourages you from clicking away. It's actually not unlike the high-pitched, sing-songy way characters on, say, Sesame Street talk to keep kids maximally engaged. The elongated vowels, the sometimes overdone R sounds, they fill potential silences, stopping those tiny pauses that kill retention metrics.
It's funny how these styles mark generations, too. We joke about the millennial pause, that slight delay before starting to speak on camera, making sure it's recording.
Right.
Whereas Gen Z creators often just launch right in, sometimes with that Gen Z shake where they kind of dramatically set the phone down, all calculated to grab attention from frame one.
If you're willing to change how you film, changing how you sound is just another tool in the kit. And once this particular high-retention speaking style becomes common among successful creators, it starts to become a prestige dialect.
You compared it to the Fraccent.
Yeah, the Fraccent, that sort of vocal fried, laid-back drawl you hear from some American fraternity members. People adopt it, consciously or not, because it signals belonging to that group. It's the in way to talk. The influencer accent works similarly. It's adopted because it's become the linguistic marker of the successful influencer class. It's a clear example of the linguistic founder effect, where the habits of early influential users, like the first big YouTubers or maybe the Kardashians, set the standard for everyone else wanting to succeed in that space.
So the algorithm isn't just reflecting your identity back at you. It's actively pushing you towards an identity that it helps shape. And this seems especially powerful within fandoms through what you called fanalex.
Fanalex, yeah, the specialized language of fan groups. Think
Okay.
Swifties, K-pop stans, gamers. They have incredibly specific vocabularies. The algorithm notices you engaging with, say, Taylor Swift stuff, and because it wants more data points to categorize you better, it starts feeding you more and more niche content within that fandom. It encourages you to dive deeper into the fanelect.
So when people say, wow, the algorithm really gets me, it's kind of a self-fulfilling loop.
Totally. The algorithm builds you this personalized echo chamber. It filters out stuff that doesn't fit the profile it's building for you. It reinforces the identity it helped create by constantly showing you content that matches your linguistic and aesthetic choices. And the more you use those fanelect words or reference specific inside jokes, the richer the metadata the algorithm collects, locking you even tighter into that niche identity.
Which brings us straight to language being used almost like search engine optimization, SEO. And the prime example is the explosion of Vancore aesthetics.
Right. All these hyper-niche labels, cottagecore, barbiecore, goblincore, dark academia. Their sudden boom since around 2020 isn't just random culture happening. It's a direct response to a technical need. The platforms need better metadata generation.
Explain that link. Why do platforms crave these super specific labels?
It just makes it way easier for the machine to understand you and ultimately sell things to you if it can slap a very specific searchable tag on you. If you search cottagecore and start using the lingo, the platform doesn't just know you like nature. It knows you like a specific aesthetic, pastoral vibes, certain clothes, flowery patterns, or romanticized rural thing.
It's like how Spotify breaks music down into thousands of microgenres.
Exactly like that. Spotify has, what, over 6,000 microgenre, hyperpop, doom metal, whatever. They create these labels to categorize the audio better, and then we start using those labels to talk about music, which speeds up their adoption. Platforms encourage core labels for the same reason. They're incredibly efficient tags for targeted advertising.
And this connects to the long-tail retail model, right? Like Amazon.
Yep. The long tail idea is that while blockbuster products sell huge numbers of a few things, that's the head of the demand curve, the real money is often in selling small amounts of thousands of niche items. That's the long tail. These micro-labels, these cure aesthetics, they essentially create new, highly targetable demographics perfect for selling those long tail products.
So if the algorithm knows you identify as Goblin Core, it knows exactly which niche, maybe slightly weird products to show you ads for.
Precisely. If you're deep in the cottagecore bubble, you're much more likely to click on an ad for a specific style of flowy dress or a vintage-looking teapot because that product feels like part of the identity the algorithm helped solidify for you.
Wow.
And the platforms are open about this. TikTok literally said in a marketing doc recently, your brand becomes part of their identity. They are actively encouraging the creation of these hyper-specific sellable identities to drive affiliate commissions and sales. It feeds this cycle that some critics call enshittification, where platforms prioritize business needs over the actual user experience, making the platform itself worse over time.
Okay, so as these ALGOSPEAK trends spread and get commercialized, we absolutely have to talk about the downsides, the social costs, starting with how this speeds up the euphemism treadmill and language appropriation.
Yeah, this gets really complicated and often painful. The algorithm basically puts the traditional cycle of linguistic appropriation on hyperdrive. Take African American English, AAE. It carries this huge amount of counterculture coolness, this prestige, but at the same time, it's often stigmatized by mainstream or standard culture.
And that idea of cool itself has deep roots, right? Back to the West African idea of Itutu, that calm, stoic dignity in the face of hardship.
Exactly. And because AAE has that counterculture cachet, outgroups inevitably start adopting its terms. But the moment AAE words like cool itself or later woke, bae, fam, bet, you name it, hit the mainstream and get used widely, they tend to lose their specific cultural value for the original in-group.
Which forces the community to keep inventing new terms to maintain their distinctiveness.
Right. And the algorithm, by making global spread instantaneous, has compressed that whole cycle from taking maybe decades down to just months or even weeks.
So words that maybe didn't start on, say, 4chan or some other very specific niche, chances are they followed this AAE appropriation path.
It's a very common pathway. The algorithm just smooths the process, pulling words like finna, meaning going to, or dead ass, meaning seriously, out of their original context and into mass, often commercial, use incredibly quickly.
We see this pattern really clearly with words that came from ball culture slang, too.
Oh, absolutely. The language of the 1980s Black and Latino LGBTQ ballroom scene that was inherently political, social resistance, words like slay, mother, tea, that were powerful in-group signals. But once mass media documentaries like Paris is Burning, shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, and then especially social media opened the floodgates, those terms just diffuse rapidly outwards.
But often losing their original complex meanings in the process, which is where the harm comes in.
That's the painful part for many. Mother, which originally meant the head of a drag house, this protective matriarchal figure, gets watered down into just a generic compliment for, like, any female celebrity.
Yeah.
Slay, which meant this incredible triumph against odds, becomes just, you did a mildly good thing. For the originating community, seeing these words stripped of their history and power can be really invalidating. The internet just dissolves those social boundaries that used to let groups protect their own language.
And this loss of context feels especially sharp when we look at something called hood irony.
Hood irony. Yeah, that's the term for when people, often outside the community, appropriate language from gang culture or AAE specifically for humor, making light of situations or communities that are actually facing serious hardship or violence. Take the word op. It's short for opponent or opposition. and it comes from very specific, often violent contexts like Chicago drill rap music.
But now it's just common slang, right? Like in phrases, consider yourself an op.
Yeah, exactly. It's widespread Gen Z slang, often used jokingly, with most users having zero idea of its heavy, real-world origins. It's a linguistic flattening.
A flattening. That's a good way to put it.
And you see the same thing with Geit. The word itself sounds kind of funny and strange because of the spelling, but it actually comes from an exaggerated AAE pronunciation of goddamn or got that ass. The humor for the outgroup often comes from the exaggeration of a specific, non-standard pronunciation, implicitly suggesting that the AAE way of speaking is itself inherently funny.
The sources also mentioned this isn't just verbal, it extends to visuals too, like digital blackface.
Absolutely. Research shows non-Black people tend to overuse reaction GIFs and memes featuring Black individuals. Often these visuals are chosen specifically because they convey really strong, exaggerated emotions, that same sort of heightened performance quality that's sometimes stereotypically associated with Black culture.
So using Black reactions as a sort of universal stand-in for exaggerated feelings.
It falls into digital blackface territory, yeah. It reinforces harmful historical tropes of Blackness being primarily performative or there for the entertainment of others.
Okay, let's wrap this section with Flanderization and that really negative label, brain rot.
Flanderization, right. Named after Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. It's when a complex character or identity gets reduced down to just a few extreme, easily digestible quirks. Algorithms love Flanderization because extreme behaviors, extreme opinions, extreme aesthetics, those grab attention. They're highly engaging. So the algorithm amplifies the extreme, making it seem much more common or normal than it actually is.
And this happens to whole groups of people, not just individuals.
Definitely. The constant use of generational labels, Gen Z, Millennial, Boomer, is a form of mass Flanderization. It lumps millions of diverse people into these simplistic, easy-to-market boxes.
It feels like that long tail thing again, creating easy segments.
It has that flavor, yeah. And the language that spreads within this Flanderized environment often gets harshly judged.
Which brings us to brain rot being applied to Gen Alpha slang.
Brain rot, which ironically just got picked as Oxford's 2024 Word of the Year, is used to really stigmatize the language of young kids today and the kids themselves. It frames their vocabulary words like skibidi, phantom tax, giat as proof of an unhealthy online presence, like it's rotting their brains, which is linguistically absurd.
How so?
Well, take skibidi. Etymologically, it's basically nonsense derived from scat singing, just like Scooby-Doo. But one is seen as harmless kid stuff, the other as this symptom of digital decay.
So the brain rot label is basically an attack from outside on a new sociolect.
It weaponizes anxiety about the youth and technology. By calling their language toxic, it dismisses the kids, often harms the communities where some terms originated, like AAE speakers with Gyat, and reinforces those overly simplistic generational boxes. Whether it's niche political takes or extreme cottagecore, the algorithm boosts the most cartoonish, Flanderized version because that's what gets clicks and shares and can be easily monetized.
And constantly amplifying these differences just fuels conflict between generations.
Totally. The whole okay boomer thing, complaints about the millennial pause. These linguistic and behavioral markers get blown up until they feel like deep tribal divides. Our brains get trained to identify with these simplified caricatures, pushing us into conflicts that are basically engineered for engagement. Hashtag outro outro.
Okay, so we've gone through evasion, amplification, commodification, conflict. After this really deep dive, where does all this leave us? This global, super fast, sometimes self-parodying evolution of language.
Well, first, you just have to acknowledge how global ALGOSPEAK is now. We're seeing Chilean students using English loanwords like eslay for slay, or talking about el mewing. English is undeniably the internet's lingua franca, and that's creating huge headaches for traditional language police.
Like the Real Academia Española in Spain, trying to keep Spanish pure. They must be fighting a losing battle against slang, flooding in from English language TikTok.
It's a massive shift. Power is moving away from those top-down prescriptive authorities towards the messy, fluid, decentralized masses online, and that has real political ripple effects.
Like that Australian senator, Fatima Payman, using slang in a speech.
Exactly. She deliberately dropped terms like sigma, cap, and phantom tax into a formal speech, telling people to vote so she could mog her ops. Politicians are realizing they have to speak the language that goes viral, the language that grabs attention online. Political discourse itself is getting shaped by the same algorithmic pressures that make a dance challenge blow up.
But there's a fascinating paradox here, isn't there, that maybe offers some hope. We're in this system that feels super controlled, centralized by platforms optimizing for profit.
Yet human creativity keeps finding ways around it. Finding decentralized ways to speak back or speak secretly. Look at the Hong Kong protests back in 2019. Protesters used Kongish, that mix of Cantonese and English and all sorts of coded language, rain for pepper spray, shopping for protesting, all designed specifically to evade Chinese state algorithms and organize.
That ingenuity is pretty remarkable.
It really is. The sheer creativity needed to constantly invent and adapt ALGOSPEAK shows we can work around centralized control.
So, for you listening, trying to keep your own voice authentic, your own identity clear in this sped-up, weird landscape, what's the main takeaway?
I think the most crucial thing to grasp is this. Algorithms aren't just passive mirrors showing you who you are. They are active agents. They are aggressively shaping who you become. They do this by pushing content and language that is highly engaging, which often means it's flanderized, sensationalized, or commercialized. You're constantly being nudged into these little micro-identities because those are easier for the platform to categorize, predict, and sell to.
Recognizing that nudge is the first step.
It is. Recognizing that is the first step towards having some self-determination online.
It creates that feeling that we're all marching in lockstep, talking the same way, but the rhythm is being set by invisible code designed purely to keep us glued to the screen.
And that naturally leads to a lot of anxiety, this algorithmic anxiety. You see it in comment sections everywhere. The question, are we cooked? Are we losing control of language, of ourselves?
But history shows language always adapts to new tech, doesn't it? When the telephone came along, hello was just one trendy greeting that happened to win out over others, like oi hoy.
Exactly. ALGOSPEAK isn't the death of language. It's actually powerful proof of human resilience, our stubborn creativity. No matter how the technology changes, we find new ways to express ourselves, get around rules, build communities. The very existence of ALGOSPEAK shows we're just as adaptable, sometimes as silly, and ultimately as human as we've always been.
So ALGOSPEAK isn't just a story about algorithms being powerful. It's maybe more a story about human adaptation in response to that power.
That's a great way to put it. So the final provocative thought I'll leave you with is this. Everything we talked about today, unalive, Riz, the influencer accent, the elk cores, they all arose because existing human needs, like evasion, connection, status, intercepted with new technology, the algorithm, short-form video. So what entirely new human needs are emerging now? Maybe a need for deeper connection, maybe a need for resistance against AI-generated content. And what completely new technology, maybe one we haven't even imagined yet, will accelerate the next linguistic revolution that springs from those needs.
That is definitely a deep dive for another time. Thank you so much for walking us through all this.
My pleasure. Until next time, stay curious and maybe watch your vowels online.